Lady yield. Chair recognizes Mr. Craig from Minnesota.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for allowing me to wave on to this committee today. I think if I were a permanent member, I'd have a permanent headache.
Well, you won't have to worry about it, but
Governor
go ahead.
Walz, it is so good to see you today. Let me start by saying that we should all be against chaos. We all are for a safe and secure border and an orderly immigration system. What we're seeing now, though, is chaos out of the current administration with their blatant disregard for due process and their indiscriminate immigration executive orders. In fact, the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security had to take down its posted sanctuary jurisdictions list because it created mass confusion in Minnesota for local officials and was opposed by local law enforcement. And so, Governor Walz, let me just start, just so we know the record is correct. I didn't think Minnesota was a sanctuary state. Is Minnesota a sanctuary state, Governor?
We are not. The legislature.
Patriots, we need to talk. Because once again, the left is gaslighting the American people. And this time, it's happening right in front of our eyes in a congressional hearing, with Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz painting a picture so rosy, you'd think Minnesota is heaven on earth. But we know better. This video right here, folks, this transcript, it reveals the deep dysfunction of an administration and state leadership more concerned with political optics than the safety of our nation and the sovereignty of our laws.
State, Governor?
We are not. The legislature has passed no such law, and I have signed no such law, and we follow all federal law.
Thank you, sir. That list included 20 counties when it came out across Minnesota without any rhyme or reason, including LeSueur County, which I represent. I've inquired into why they are listed from DHS, but still absolutely no answers. Governor Walz, I thought it might be helpful to point out that according to the FBI's own 2023 data, Minnesota has fewer violent incidents per 100,000 than states such as Tennessee, Louisiana, Missouri, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, I'm going to repeat that again, Georgia, and Ohio. Why do you think that our state has been able to maintain a lower crime rate than other states?
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. And we are at a 30-year low on serious crimes, and as you said, we consistently rank below. And I think that's because we invest, as we have, historic investments in law enforcement, but law enforcement works with the community. There's a process in place. We know who they are. They work hand in hand. We make sure that those laws are followed, and we also have policies where we show compassion to our neighbors. And it's not chaos, as you said. It's done right. So I am grateful, grateful for the law enforcement who does that work, but I'm also grateful to the legislature and my administration who have put in historic amounts of help to make sure they're able to deliver those services. And they are the ones that are best trained to do it. And the case that you brought up of listing these, in Minnesota, counties can go above the federal floor. If they want to issue detainers, they certainly can. Many of those counties that were listed on there would fit the definition of everyone on this side of the aisle is asking for, and they're doing that. Nothing prohibits them in Minnesota from doing that, and yet they ended up on the list. It caused great chaos, and law enforcement themselves, and as you heard earlier, Sheriff's Association issuing, that it can't be done this way.
Thank you, Governor. Earlier today, I spoke with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and I think all of us here share the goals of lowering cost for our constituents and growing the economy. According to a Minnesota Chamber Foundation report from this February, Minnesota's immigrant labor force participation rate was over 74%, well above the national average. And they fill important jobs in our agriculture, healthcare, and manufacturing sectors. Governor Walz, how can we ensure Minnesota remains a state to attract the talent we need and a strong economy?
We invest in our people. We make sure we remain the #1 healthcare state. We make sure that people are safe in their communities. We talk about focusing on the work that the State Patrol keeps our roads safest. Top 3 state for the lowest number of traffic accidents. That's what they should be focusing on. Investing, and as the Chamber is focusing on, Minnesota's #4 in Fortune 500 per capita, and we were ranked 6th best state for business. Continue to have a well-educated, a healthy, safe, and make sure we're investing in those opportunities for people. That's all we're asking, and we're asking that the federal government do their job. You continue to ask states to do ICE job. They are free to do their job in Minnesota, but they're asking us to do the job when we're doing everything we can to help, but we have all of the other responsibilities of educating, of public safety, of roads, of transportation, of water infrastructure. And that's why Minnesota remains a top state, because we invest in our people, we invest in their growth, we invest in their families.
Thank you, Governor. I appreciate this, and Mr. Lynch, I'll yield last 20 seconds to you if you've got that.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that. Thank you very much, Representative. For this 12 seconds, I just want to read, this is from the Minnesota Reformer from February 12th, 2025. The sanctuary bill that was offered in the Minnesota legislature is already dead, as House Speaker says it doesn't have the votes. So this was an attempt to actually make Minnesota a sanctuary state, and it, like the Speaker said, didn't have the votes and died very early in the process.
And we got to the business of balancing our budget and investing in all of the other things we needed to do.
All right, gentlemen, ladies, time's expired. Chair recognizes Ms. Miller from Illinois.
Let's break this down. Now here comes Representative Angie Craig from Minnesota thanking the committee, joking about getting a permanent headache. Well, if you're not taking border security seriously, I hope it gives you a headache, ma'am. She says, and I quote, "We should all be against chaos." Well, that's rich coming from a member of a party that has done nothing but sow chaos at the border. Chaos through open border policies. Chaos through executive orders that spit in the face of our federal laws. You want order, Congresswoman? You start by enforcing the damn law. And then we get Governor Walz standing there saying Minnesota isn't a sanctuary state. Sure, technically, no law has been passed, but let's not play games here, Governor. When your law enforcement refuses to cooperate with ICE, when counties in your state are acting like sanctuary jurisdictions, guess what? That's what we call de facto sanctuary status. They complained about Trump's DHS list causing confusion. You know what causes confusion? When local law enforcement doesn't know whether to follow federal law or bow to woke ideology. When sheriffs are thrown under the bus because politicians are more worried about headlines than handcuffs. And let me say something. That list may have caused chaos for bureaucrats, but it was meant to bring clarity to Americans. Clarity about who is harboring illegal aliens and who is standing up for law and order. Oh, and let's talk about crime. They say Minnesota is safer than Tennessee, Louisiana, or Texas? Well, maybe on paper, Governor, but how do you explain the lawlessness in Minneapolis? The looting, the violence, the streets where police are afraid to patrol because your party demonized them into silence. Let's not forget, Governor Walz was the same guy who let Minneapolis burn in 2020. He backed off when leadership was needed most. That kind of weakness emboldens criminals and punishes patriots. And then they roll out the economic card. Oh, immigrants are vital for our economy. Look, nobody's saying legal immigrants don't contribute. We all know that. But let's get this straight. We're not talking about immigrants. We're talking about illegal immigrants and the damage they do. Over 74% participation rate? Fine, but how many of those jobs were taken under the table? How many went to illegals who jumped the line instead of following the law like my grandfather did when he came here? The left wants cheap labor and votes. We want secure borders and the rule of law. Period. He brags about Minnesota being the best in healthcare, roads, infrastructure. That's great, Governor. But you know what doesn't help infrastructure? Taking in thousands of people who aren't documented, who strain hospitals, schools, and emergency services without contributing equally to the system. Then they try to make it sound like everything's fine because the sanctuary bill died in the legislature. Guess what? The fact that this bill was even considered tells you where their heart is. They're laying the groundwork. They failed this time, but they'll try again. And if we don't wake up and push back, if we don't hold the line, we're going to wake up one day and find our cities looking more like failed states than American heartlands. Patriots, the time for silence is over. What you just heard in this hearing is a microcosm of everything that's wrong with our political class. They say one thing, then do another. They claim they support law enforcement, but they abandon ICE. They say they aren't a sanctuary state, but act like one behind the scenes. We must demand accountability. We must protect our borders, defend our communities, and restore the rule of law. This is the United States of America, not the United States of excuses. Share this video, leave a comment, let me know if you're tired of the lies, because I am. God bless you, and God bless America.